Live from Brisbane, 7 News with Marlina Whop.
Good afternoon. Our top stories on 7. Horror crash, a teen charged over a smash that killed a man in a mobility scooter. A Medicare election, billions to help you see a doctor, but can it cure Labor's polling problems? The Pope still listed as critical as the Vatican reveals he has new health worries. And all the big winners from the Screen Actors Guild Awards in Hollywood. Good afternoon. A 17-year-old boy has been charged over the death of a pensioner run down on his mobility scooter as he was crossing a road in Kingston. Jordan Quinn has been following the case and was in court as the boy appeared for the first time.
Good afternoon. A 17-year-old boy has now been charged over the fatal crash here in Kingston on Saturday. It's alleged he was driving unlicensed when he hit and killed a 76-year-old man on his mobility scooter. The victim has been identified as Alan Smiley, a local from the area. He was crossing the road on his way back from the shops, as he does every Saturday, when he was struck by a red Ford Focus. Police say that car failed to give way at a stop sign. Behind the wheel, the 17-year-old driver was allegedly affected by a substance.
We still have to wait for some further forensic and toxicology examinations before we can be clear about what the substance was.
The 17-year-old was arrested at the scene. His passengers had tried to run away.
There's been no charges preferred against the passenger, but we have objected to the 17-year-old's bail.
The boy made no application for bail in court today. His case has been adjourned till next month.
Cyclone Alfred continues to intensify in the Coral Sea today. Tony Auden, we could still see some impacts on the Queensland coast.
Yes, Marlina, we're going to be watching Cyclone Alfred for many days to come, and we are not out of the woods for a potential coastal crossing. Eventually. For now, Alfred is a top-end Category 1 cyclone sitting just over 1,000 kilometres off Cairns out over the northern Coral Sea. We can be confident in the forecast for the next few days. Tracking south, likely reaching Category 3 tomorrow, then eventually starting to weaken a little bit later towards the weekend and possibly turning a little bit slightly towards the Queensland coast. While he stays offshore, Alfred is not going to bring any significant rain, just coastal showers, as shown by the blue and yellow shades on the map here. And we'll continue to get gusty winds on the Queensland coast over the next few days, most likely for the Central Coast, Capricornia and Wide Bay. We're looking at peak gusts over 50 k's an hour, so not too damaging. But longer term, well, there's a lot more uncertainty. We could still see a coastal crossing into next week. Marlina, I'll be back soon with the latest.
All right, thanks, Tony. Prime Minister Anthony Albanese is blitzing marginal seats, selling his multi-billion-dollar Medicare plan. As Josh Martin reports from Canberra, he's facing an increasingly uphill battle if the latest poll is right.
Good afternoon. Labor is trying to scare voters away from Peter Dutton over the issue of health. The problem is the opposition leader has immediately vowed to spend $500 million more to increase bulk billing rates. Both leaders meeting doctors in target electorates today. The Prime Minister was in the seat of Chisholm in Melbourne. Labor held by 6%. Labor's new policy expands the bulk billing incentive to all Australians, includes bonuses for doctors who bulk bill all patients, and a promise that 9 out of 10 GP visits will be free from out-of-pocket expenses by 2030. Peter Dutton was in the electorate of Moreton in Brisbane. Labor held by 9%. The opposition leader says he will also deliver the plan by cutting tens of thousands of public servants as Labor attack his record from the Abbott government.
Doctors at the time voted him the worst health minister in Australian history because he wanted to cut Medicare. He said too many visits were bulk billed. Now, 5 minutes before an election, he saes something else.
We are framing up the Loch Ness Monster campaign here, isn't it? When they run out of things to say, they come out and say, oh, there's a monster in the lake. It's, Medicare. They're going to sell Medicare. Who'd want to sell Medicare? First of all, it's a government service, and who'd want to buy it?
Peter Dutton claims the opposition remains underdogs despite a new freshwater poll showing the coalition up 52 to 48, two-party preferred. Speculation the PM may call an election within the next 2 weeks as the opposition taunts him to deliver a budget on March 29 and a May election.
If the Prime Minister is cutting and running from a budget because he's got no good news to tell, then I think Why would people vote for him?
These are all just thought bubbles, and you can't govern with thought bubbles.
It's a complete reversal in position by Peter Dutton, who last year called for an early election when the government altered the Stage 3 tax cuts.
Police have received a full statement from the Israeli influencer at the centre of an anti-Semitic rant by 2 Sydney nurses. The statement was sent in Hebrew and had to be translated into English.
People just need to be patient. We've made progress. We've made very, very solid progress.
Detectives are now preparing a brief for prosecutors to determine whether the nurses can be charged under federal law. There's still no sign of a game fisherman missing after going overboard off the New South Wales coast yesterday. As Tom Saker reports, it's thought he became tangled in fishing line and was pulled into the water by a shark.
Well, 58-year-old Paul Barning was skippering a crew of 4 yesterday afternoon when they hooked what is believed to have been a mako shark as part of a game fishing competition 55 kilometres off the coast of Port Stephens in New South Wales. When they were reeling it in, Paul is believed to have entangled himself in some of the fishing wire. The shark had a sudden burst of energy and ripped him off the boat. We understand it all unfolded in a fraction of a second. Paul hasn't been seen since. The fear is that he's drowned and was certainly not attacked by a shark.
After the entanglement, we believe the shark has submerged, pulling that man into the water. There's no evidence to say that shark has attacked the person in the water.
About 50 boats in the same competition became de facto search boats after the first Mayday call early yesterday afternoon until dark last night. Many of them running out of fuel on the way back to port here in Nelson Bay. We got an update from the president of the New South Wales Game Fishing Association, who also happens to be a very close mate of Paul.
This is certainly a very freak type accident and something that you're not likely to ever see again, I don't think. It's never happened before in Australia, to my knowledge.
Paul Barning is a Sutherland Shire local in Sydney South, believed to be a very experienced game fisherman and former club president of the Port Hacking Fishing Club. Above all, he's been described as a great husband, father and mate. The search is ongoing this afternoon and the area being covered is massive. The East Australian Current, which sits above the continental shelf where Paul went missing yesterday, means he could be towards the southern end of New South Wales by now.
Bruce Lehrmann has today faced a Tasmanian court accused of stealing a car near Hobart last November. Police allege he took a Toyota Prado in the rural area of Mountain River. He appeared via phone link and did not enter a plea. The former Liberal staffer was granted bail on the condition he does not approach 2 women. The case returns to court in June. Australia has come away empty-handed from the annual Screen Actors Guild Awards in Hollywood. US correspondent Blake Johnson reports.
Well, Cate Blanchett didn't win, leaving it an Aussie-free awards night. Demi Moore, at 62, proved her renaissance is almost complete, winning Best Actress for her movie The Substance.
When I believe it, I will see it, and I am so grateful for this. Thank you.
Timothée Chalamet beat some big names to take out Best Leading Actor in a Movie. And host Kristen Bell took everyone down memory lane, singing a rendition of a Frozen song about nostalgic acting clips.
Can you scream a lot on Halloween, or be a beauty queen, or hug a purple dinosaur?
At 87, Jane Fonda isn't done yet, given the Lifetime Achievement Award.
I made one of my most successful movies in my 80s. And probably in my 90s, I'll be doing my own stunts in an action movie.
Shogun and Conclave impressed with several awards between them. The night had plenty of humour.
Goes to the man who gave me COVID at the Golden Globes, Colin Farrell.
Guilty as charged. And tributes to firefighters and victims of the recent LA fires. This city's been through a fair bit in the past few months, hasn't it?
Yes, and I'm a victim of the fires too. It's been a very rough go.
Fran Drescher are also paying tribute to Demi Moore and Pamela Anderson.
We're moving away from thinking that a woman has an earlier expiration date than a man.
The awards are voted by the actors for the actors, so this is a popular and relaxed night. It's also usually a fairly good barometer of the Oscars next week.
The Navy is preparing for a week of celebrations, with HMAS Chulls docking in Brisbane this morning. Navy Week starts next Monday, but the Chulls will be open to the public this Saturday. While it's free, people will need to register for tickets with Eventbrite to get on board for a tour. Ahead in 7 News, Germans go to the polls. The far right puts in a strong showing, but not enough to gain power. A bus fire leaves Gold Coast students to assemble by the side of the motorway, and mid-air scare, an American passenger jet shadowed by fighter jets.
Tonight, the teenager accused of killing a Kingston man riding a mobility scooter. A heartbroken family speaks out. Every window smashed, thieves trash a Daisy Hill fish and chip shop. How a blink test could save your life. And why soap star Lynn McGranger is farewelling Summer Bay. 7 News at 6.
Win a European holiday with Sunrise. You could be jetting off to the Netherlands and living it up on a 7-day luxury cruise. Plus, the Cash Cow has thousands of dollars up for grabs every single day. Be watching to win. Start with Sunrise.
School children had to be evacuated from a bus on the M1 after the engine caught fire near the Nerang exit just after 10 o'clock this morning. The driver was able to extinguish the flames before emergency crews arrived. No child was injured and all appeared to be in good spirits as they waited by the motorway for replacement buses. Germany's Conservative Party has won the country's election on a night that delivered some mixed messages. The Conservative vote was actually down while the far right put in a strong showing, although fell well short of expectations.
It wasn't the triumph they were hoping for, but it was a clear win. And at the Christian Democrat headquarters, that was enough. But forming a coalition strong enough to govern may be a whole new battle. Friedrich Merz will be Germany's new Chancellor and knows the international situation demands urgency.
Die Welt da draußen wartet nicht auf uns.
The world out there isn't waiting for us, he told supporters, and it isn't waiting for long. Drawn-out coalition talks and negotiations. The situation is complicated by the far-right AFD, led by Alice Weidel, winning 1 in 5 votes, their best ever performance. If they were a normal party, a strong second place would give them a say in coalition building, but that's not going to happen. It means the party of outgoing Chancellor Olaf Scholz, despite a humiliation, will have to stay in government as a junior partner, but it all might take Friedrich Merz a long time to sort out.
He's going to have to be a strong leader, not just for Germany, but for Europe. But as ever with Germany, you're going to have to form coalitions, and that's not going to be too easy.
Back at the Christian Democrats' victory party, there was optimism that Germany may soon be back to centre stage. But lurking in the background will be the fear that if this new government doesn't get it right, the far-right AFD will be ready and waiting for their next chance. Friedrich Merz has waited a long time for his chance to lead. It could have hardly come at a more difficult moment. Hewitt Feld, 7 News.
It was a tense few hours for passengers on an American Airlines flight from New York to New Delhi. Just hours out from their destination, passengers were informed they were turning around and heading for Rome. Later, 2 Italian fighter escorts appeared at their wings. Passengers weren't given much detail about why.
They said, "You may have noticed that we've just taken a sharp turn. The reason is there's a security concern, and so we've diverted to Rome." And then that was the announcement.
Sources say the airline received an emailed bomb threat, which was later deemed to be unfounded. The jet with 199 passengers and 15 crew landed safely in Rome. The truce in Gaza is in grave danger, according to Hamas, after Israel indefinitely delayed the planned release of 620 Palestinian prisoners. Benjamin Netanyahu blamed what he called the disgraceful handover of hostages for the decision. The Israeli Prime Minister is demanding guarantees that future exchanges take place without humiliating ceremonies. The militant group says it's a false and flimsy argument. Meantime, tens of thousands have packed a stadium in Beirut for the funeral of Hezbollah's former leader Hassan Nasrallah. He was killed in an Israeli airstrike in September. The militant group's current leader addressed mourners via video link from an undisclosed location, saying Hezbollah would not submit. Hours before the funeral, Israel launched airstrikes on Hezbollah targets in southern Lebanon. After the break, bad call why women are reluctant to pick up the phone if they're having a heart attack. And in sport, the latest on arrivals for the big weekend ahead in Vegas. When a heart attack hits, time is critical and women are having greater complications than men, with new research finding they hesitate and feel less comfortable ringing 000. A new study by Monash University has found a third of women feared they'd be a burden on paramedics. Only 1 in 4 men worry about that. Doctors warn the delay can not only be deadly but also slows diagnosis, treatment and recovery. Let's have a quick look at today's sport with Steve. The build-up to Vegas continues.
Yes, we've got that coming up, Marlina. But first, the Roosters will be without enforcer Spencer Leniu for the opening fortnight of the NRL season. The Blues' Origin staff faces a 2-game ban for a high tackle in the Roosters' pre-season game against the Knights. The build-up to Sunday's season opener in Las Vegas continues, with the Gillaroos touching down ahead of their clash with England. Jalissa Apps has more.
Well, I'm here with brand new Gillaroos coach Jess Skinner. Jess, you're looking around Vegas. It's your first time walking around here in the daylight. What's it been like?
Yeah, it's exciting. It's everything that everyone says. It's still live, morning, day, night, 24/7 city. So it's exciting. We're just doing a team walk this morning to get the girls up and about and moving. So yeah, it's a cool place to be in.
You've been involved in the women's game for so long. If someone had told you at the start that the girls would be playing a game in Vegas, what would you have said?
It's been an amazing journey to get here, actually. This time last year, sitting with the Commissioner and Andrew Abdo about the possibility of bringing a women's team. It's exciting. It's another audience that we're shining the light on our game and the women in sport as well, so it's pretty epic.
How hard is it to pick a team for Vegas?
Yeah, really hard. Selectors have done a really good job, and these are great humans here as well. So we've got the best women here to represent our country on this stage and to really show an entertaining game against England. It's going to be really tough as well.
Thank you so much. Have a great week and enjoy the training, enjoy the experience, and you can see the Gillaroos in action in just 6 days' time against England.
Hey, thank you, Jalissa. Well, it's the biggest event on Rugby League's calendar, and now the AFL wants a piece of the State of Origin action. All club captains, including Lions Premiership skipper Lachie Neale, have been quizzed on the return of rep footy.
Well, AFL CEO Andrew Dillon put it back on the agenda last week, and today the captains have given it an overwhelming vote of approval. It's been 26 years since there was official state versus state of origin, and if the word from the captains today is anything to go by, it'll be back sooner rather than later.
I'm all for it. I think hopefully they can get it done. I'd love to play against some of my teammates.
Well, for me, it was good to hear that State of Origin sort of back on the map. I reckon that'd be a pretty cool concept to bring back into the fold.
I think it'd be something that would be welcomed by a lot of people on and off the field, so big yes.
It'd be a real privilege and an honour to play for the state, and whether it happens or not is something obviously we discussed as captains last night, so we'll see what happens from there.
I think the balance with these things is not oversupplying though, because you want it to mean something. I think that was one of the really special parts around the game last week, is that it's not every year, so there's real meaning behind it, and you'll have the best players playing in it.
And today marks just 10 days until Brisbane and Geelong launch the season at the Gabba. The Lions will unfurl their 2024 Premiership flag. We'll have more here from Captain's Day on the screens of 7 throughout the day.
Yeah, thanks for that, Mitch. Now, Virat Kohli bounced back from his miserable Australian summer. With a history-making century at the Champions Trophy, Kohli became just the third player to pass 14,000 runs in one day as in India's 6-wicket win over Pakistan. Chasing 242 in Dubai, Kohli notched his 82nd ton across all formats, finishing unbeaten on 100.
The King has added another jewel to his crown. Yet another sensational innings. 100 not out.
India refused to play in Pakistan due to long-standing political tensions and the threat of terror attacks. All of their games are in Dubai. Now check this out. This might just be the luckiest break in PGA Tour history. In a sudden death playoff at the Mexican Open with Aldrich Poetgieter, a South African who grew up in Perth, Brian Campbell's tee shot at the third extra hole looked certain to go out of bounds.
This is going to need a good bounce, and it got one. It hit the trees and came back. Goodness. That is the bounce of a career.
Campbell cashed in on the break of a lifetime, making birdie to end his decade-long victory drought. In addition to a life-changing $2 million, the 31-year-old American gets a spot in the Masters and several other big events. The reaction of his partner Kelsey, well, she said it all. Marlina, she might get another diamond ring.
Amazing shot. All right, thank you, Steve.
Thanks,
Coming up in the afternoon news, health fears. The Pope listed as critical as the Vatican confirms he's begun experiencing kidney problems. A bitter anniversary. The war in Ukraine marks 3 years. And later, after the weather, it's sometimes said you could walk across it, but would you swim in the Yarra?
Live from Brisbane, 7 News with Marlina Whop.
Recapping our top stories this afternoon, and a 17-year-old boy has faced court charged over a crash at Kingston that claimed the life of an elderly man on a mobility scooter. He's been remanded in custody. Cyclone Alfred has formed in the Coral Sea and is forecast to intensify to a Category 3 by tomorrow. At this stage, it's around 1,000 kilometres off the coast. And the search is continuing for a game fisherman who went overboard off the Newcastle yesterday. It appears he became entangled in fishing line and was pulled into the water by a shark. The murder trial for the man accused of the 2018 killing of Cairns woman Toyah Cordingley is about to begin in far north Queensland. Rosanna Kingson is at the Supreme Court. Rosie, the trial begins tomorrow.
Marlina, that's when a jury will be impanelled and the court will begin hearing details of the police case against 39-year-old Rajwinder Singh. It has been more than 6 years since 24-year-old Cairns woman Toyah Cordingley went for a walk on the beach with her dog and never came home. Toyah was reported missing. The next day, her body was found at Wongetty Beach. Her dog was located tied up nearby, and Rajwinder Singh, a former Innisfail nurse, was later charged with Toyah's murder. The 39-year-old is fighting the charge, and tomorrow his trial will begin here in the Cairns Supreme Court. The court has previously heard the case against Singh is circumstantial and there is no direct evidence he was the killer. The trial is expected to run for 4 weeks. Marlina?
Thank you, Rosie. The world's 1.3 billion Roman Catholics are praying for Pope Francis after news he's now showing signs of early but mild kidney failure on top of his respiratory illnesses. The 88-year-old is listed as critical, and as Ben Downey reports from Rome, the Vatican says he continues to be alert and well-orientated.
Well, the latest update from the Vatican on the Pope's health situation is going from bad to worse. He is in a critical condition for the second day now, but has now developed kidney failure. Now, the Vatican's quick to point out as medical professionals believe that they have this under control, but it represents the deteriorating health crisis that the Pope finds himself in. He's also still receiving nasal oxygen therapy for the bronchitis and pneumonia that's affecting both of his lungs, and this is after he received blood transfusions yesterday. The anemia that he developed, low platelet levels in his blood. Despite all this, the Vatican statement says that the Pope remains in good spirits and was able to participate in a mass today for the health workers helping him out in the 10th floor of the Gemelli Hospital where we are now. But his medical professionals that are taking care of him, well, one of the big things they say is besides the pneumonia that's what's put him in hospital, the real risk is actually to do with his blood, the risk of sepsis, infection, what would lead then to organ failure, would be almost certainly fatal for the 88-year-old, who released a statement today, and it reads, "I've received many messages of affection, and I've been particularly struck by the letters and drawings from children. Thank you for this closeness and for the prayers of comfort I've received from all over the world. I entrust you to the intercession of Mary, and I ask that you pray for me." And here at the hospital, that's exactly what the faithful have been doing. It's become a spontaneous area for reflection and pilgrimage. Priests, nuns and the faithful coming here to pray for the Pontifex, hoping that he pulls through another night in hospital.
The messaging platform Telegram is preparing to go to court against Australia's online watchdog. The eSafety Commissioner has fined the app $950,000 for missing a deadline to explain how it's combating terrorism and child abuse material. Other platforms were also forced to answer, but Telegram took 160 days to respond. The app is planning to fight the penalty, saying it provided an adequate response. There's confusion and even pushback from some Republicans after Elon Musk issued millions of government workers in the US an ultimatum. They have until midnight Monday to email an explanation of what they did last week, or they risk losing their jobs.
The clock is ticking on 2.3 million federal workers. Most have until Monday at 11:59 p.m. to respond to an email pushed by Elon Musk and the Department of Government Efficiency titled, "What did you do last week?" 3 sources tell NBC News employees started receiving the email Saturday, asking them to send 5 bullet points of what they accomplished last week. Americans sounding off at town halls across the country, including at this Q&A for Texas Republican Congressman Pete Sessions.
When are you going to wrest control as the Congress back from the executive and stop hurting your constituents?
And online.
This gets weirder by the day.
We're living in a timeline where our democracy is being dismantled.
At this point, I am the most pessimistic I've ever been in my life.
Signs of both mixed messaging from government agencies and a possible power struggle between some Trump officials and Elon Musk, with some agencies telling their workers not to respond. Emails obtained by NBC News show the FBI director telling workers to pause any responses. The State Department saying no employee is obligated to report their activities outside of their department chain of command. But the Department of Health and Human Services is telling workers the email is legitimate and to respond by the deadline. Musk saying on his social media platform X that failure to respond will be taken as a resignation. That after defending his actions at the conservative conference, CPAC.
Waste is pretty much everywhere. So it's like you're going to close your eyes and go shoot in any direction. You can't miss.
This weekend, President Trump also praising Musk and Doge.
We're removing all of the unnecessary, incompetent, and corrupt bureaucrats from the federal workforce.
A provocative show of support for Russia on the 3rd anniversary of its invasion of Ukraine. A convoy displaying a Russian symbol drove through a Sydney beachside suburb under police escort. As Chris Reason reports, Ukrainians have called the display disgusting.
Good afternoon. Well, Australia's Ukrainian community were left aghast and appalled after a pro-Russian convoy was allowed to take place on the 3rd anniversary of the Ukraine war here in Sydney. A convoy of utes and camouflage trucks, all emblazoned with the letter Z rolling down Campbell Parade, Bondi. The Z, of course, is a marking that Russian tanks have used since the Ukraine invasion. Now, the Ukrainian community questioning why it was allowed to take place with a police escort, while Ukraine's ambassador to Australia condemned the actions. Now, it came as the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said overnight that he would quit his job if it meant Ukraine could join NATO. His comments coming after US President Donald Trump last week called him a dictator and accused Ukraine of having started the war. The US Defence Secretary saying that isn't a realistic option for joining NATO. This morning, Ukrainian officials and community members met in Canberra to mark the 3 years since Russia invaded. The ambassador wouldn't criticise Mr. Trump directly, but did say this.
I'm satisfied with how Australia reacted to this war. You know, for Australians don't tolerate bullies. And it's pretty clear who's evil, who's good, who's David, who's Goliath in this fight. It's black and white.
Meanwhile, President Trump is pushing ahead with his demands for Ukraine to hand over half its revenue from mining and minerals rights in a $700 billion deal. It's led some to say this isn't negotiation, it's extortion. Back to you.
After the break, it's go for launch, the Queensland rocket company ready for its maiden flight. And a home and away favourite announces she's leaving Summer Bay. After years of planning and development, a Gold Coast rocket company says it's ready for blast-off. Gilmour Space Technologies has announced the launch window for the maiden flight of its Aeris rocket opens on Saturday, the 15th of March. And joining me is Gilmour co-founder and CEO Adam Gilmour. Adam, you have a go for launch. Is the Aeris on the pad in Bowen, or what's happening now?
Yeah, hi Marlina. The Aeris is inside the vehicle assembly building. We've just had it outside on the pad vertical because we put the nozzles on the main engines on the bottom of the vehicle, and it's been put back safely inside. But we're ready to go, and we're just counting down through the approval process that has a mandatory notification period. And so we can start the window on the 15th.
So it will be the rocket's maiden flight. It's not unheard of that things sometimes don't go according to plan. What does success look like?
Well, it's normal that things don't go right. It's usual around the world through history that the first rocket fails on its first attempt, but everybody knows that. So what we do is we put a lot of sensors on the rocket. We have over 400. And we're checking everything from temperatures to vibration to shock loads. And so we literally look at success of seconds of flight. We get off the pad, that's the first sign of success. If we can fly 10 seconds, we get a lot of data. We burn down a lot of risk on the technology. We kind of think if we get off the pad, we'll have 50-ish seconds of flight time at a minimum before things can go wrong. And that would be a fantastic outcome. But personally, if I get it off the pad on my first attempt, I will consider that a huge success.
The space industry is becoming increasingly competitive with the likes of SpaceX and others. Where does Gilmour fit into the picture?
Well, the way we fit in is we look at SpaceX as like a super jumbo A380 that goes from one capital city to another. And we're like a mid-sized regional jet, that does the Sydney, Melbourne, Sydney, Brisbane trips. And that's where the bulk of the customers want to go. And so we're going to places in space that SpaceX doesn't really go to. And in our side of the market, there's a massive demand from customers that need access to space, and they can't wait for us to get going so we can help them out.
All right, we'll wait and see what happens. Adam Gilmour from Gilmour Space Technologies, thanks for your time.
Pleasure, thanks.
Australians waiting on the phone for assistance has risen to an astonishing 123 million hours a year. The research done by ServiceNow finds that MyGov, Telstra and Optus are the worst for keeping us on hold. They're followed by Maya, David Jones and Centrelink.
Last year I toured a play, the Grandparents Club, and I guess it had been in my head for a while, and I just thought, you know what, this is what I love to do. This is how I started in the business. I felt like I'd gone full circle, and I thought now's the right time. Either I retire or they carry me out in a box.
Do you still get amazed? Home and Away has been, continuing for decades and is loved by millions of people here and around the world. Do you still get amazed when people come up to you as massive fans?
I do, absolutely. And people call me Irene all the time.
Oh, do they?
Look, the lines are very blurred, let me tell you that. But, I do. I still get surprised that... Well, to be honest, I get surprised when people call me Lynn.
Oh, do
I'm like,
you?
who's that?
Call you Irene, your character's name.
Yes, I'm more used to that.
The series has been a spring springboard for other Australians who have done so incredibly well. Tell us some of the people you've met along the way.
Okay, well, of course, I must start with Chris Hemsworth.
Who's that?
Who's that? The lovely Chris Hemsworth. Gorgeous man, gorgeous family, deserves everything he gets. Hard worker. Then we've got people like Isla Fisher.
Great.
Beautiful, talented, funny. Tiffany Deckett, who went on to become and still is a very famous author. Tristan Banks, equally famous author, kids author. Ryan Quanten, people might remember him from The Walking Dead, I think. And he's done lots of stuff in the States. Gosh, who else? There are plenty.
So many.
Yeah, so many.
Lynn, thank you very much and congratulations on the incredible career.
Thank you, darling. It's an honour. Thank you so much.
We're checking finance now, and it's been a fairly flat start to the week for the local share market. Here's James Tao from ING Bank with more.
Good afternoon. The Aussie market overcame some early declines of up to 1% to finish today slightly higher. The ASX 200 added 12 points, or a little over 0.1%. Improvements were among the major banks, and that certainly offset losses for the likes of our tech, energy and mining stocks. For those big four lenders, CBA and ANZ were the best with gains of up to 3%. Health insurer NIB was one of the best on the market, jumping 13%, even with its first half underlying profit falling 26% on a year ago. It was still above the market's expectation. WiseTech, a logistics software firm, slumped 20% today, however, after it announced 4 directors resigned over differences on the involvement of former CEO Richard White at the company. The Aussie dollar is now buying about 63.8 US cents.
Well, just ahead, taking the plunge. Could you be convinced to swim in Melbourne's Yarra River? And a mostly sunny afternoon across the southeast. This is a look at Brisbane right now. It's currently 29 degrees. Tony has the forecast next.
Tonight, the teenager accused of killing a Kingston man riding a mobility scooter. A heartbroken family speaks out. Every window smashed, thieves trash a Daisy Hill fish and chip shop. How a blink test could save your life. And why soap star Lynn Granger is farewelling Summer Bay. 7 News at 6.
Good afternoon, Queensland. You're watching 7 News. Checking the weather now, and after a mostly cloudy morning, skies have cleared up in the southeast this afternoon. Not a bad view over Brisbane a short time ago. A few showers this morning, they cleared quickly. A little bit hotter. Ipswich on top of the podium with 33 degrees, while Redcliffe was warmest overnight, a minimum of 23. Zooming out, Cyclone Alfred is still at Category 1, sitting over 900 kilometres off the coast. Over land, we've seen a few showers and inland storms around the Capricornia and Central Coast, also the tip of Cape York Peninsula, and a couple of showers around Townsville this afternoon too. Looking ahead, Alfred should continue to intensify, likely reaching Category 2 or 3 tomorrow and heading south. Longer term, he could move closer to the Queensland coast into the weekend or early next week. In the meantime, more gusty winds and coastal showers for much of the Queensland coast. Around the capitals tomorrow, Adelaide can expect some late summer heat, sunshine, 33 degrees, blue skies a bit cooler on 27 degrees in Melbourne, a shower or 2 in Sydney. For northern Queensland tomorrow, gusty winds along the coast and the normal pattern when we have these humid southeast winds pushing in. A couple of showers for Cairns and Mackay, less likely in Townsville due to the different direction of the coast. A little bit hotter there as well, 33 degrees. Over southern districts, also windy for the Capricornia and Wide Bay, and a couple of passing showers from about Gympie north towards Rockhampton. Mostly sunny further south in Toowoomba, a top of 29 degrees. Across the southeast, showers continuing for the Sunshine Coast. They'll be much less frequent further south with a few more sunny breaks. Staying humid, 21 up to 31 degrees in Brisbane and 30 on the Gold Coast. Marlina, I'll have the full forecast at 6 and, of course, all that latest information on Cyclone Alfred.
All right, thank you, Tony. Would you swim in Melbourne's Yarra River? A community group is proposing a floating sauna and plunge pool to convince people to swim in the city. As Bethan Yeoman reports, it might not be as silly as it sounds.
The bold plan marks out 10 spots along the Yarra River between Docklands and Fairfield, including right here in South Yarra, where floating saunas and plunge pools could help transform the waterway and its image. It's currently illegal to swim any further down the river from Abbotsford due to both water quality concerns and boat traffic, but this project would change that. It's led by Regen Melbourne and a large collection of groups who already swim further upstream. They're pushing for greater participation in river swimming to help build momentum and gain government support.
So why don't people do it? I think there's a physical barrier of memories of Jim Courier jumping in the river after he won and getting sick. So there's certain bits that people have urban legends that you can't swim here.
Point of the sauna will be partly getting people down to the water so they get even used to the idea that it could be a possibility, because it's not been a possibility for so long.
It's not an impossible task, but transforming the Yarra will be a massive undertaking. In Sydney, similar work has been done along the Parramatta River with a goal to open up 16 new swimming spots. The concept plan for the Yarra also includes a wellness centre and river baths. Regen hopes it will become a reality within 5 years.
Well, that's Queensland's 4 p.m. news for this Monday. Stay with us now for The Chase, then 7 News at 6. I'm Marlina Whop. I'll see you tomorrow.
The 7 News app will give you the news you want. Download now.